Mr. Dapp, Motke Dapp, Susannah, John Minichillo, and we're going to, in relatively quick succession, read a series of pieces that all, and you think of them as fragments leading to a greater whole. They all begin with the phrase, or proceed from the phrase "after the flood," which you will recognize from this evening's intermissions. And anyway, appropriately, starting it off will be Mr. Motke Dapp.
After the flood, they put their houses on stilts, using magic and wishes to elevate the structures, wondering why they hadn't used them when the waters were filling the area from sky and ground. Unused wishes are like uneaten wrapped candy that lives under your bed that you don't want to eat because you know that you'll be sad when it's gone. The blueberry bush garden that she spent the previous summer planting had relocated itself to the neighbor's roof, and the birds were finishing off the last of the ripened fruit. The garden was immune to wishes, or so she was led to believe from magazine articles she had read on the subject. She stood at her window, watching the clouds bump into each other before dissipating, thinking of the receding waters, the absence of phone calls, her missing stuffed rabbit with the wonky ear, and the one wish she had yet to use, nestled in the pocket of her apron. She spent months drying out her photos, her memories, the things she kept in vials and fancy hat boxes. They sat on her back lawn, soaking up the sun.
After the flood, I heard thunder rolling in my dreams. I couldn't find Big Kitty. I called you from the motel and you said you'd be coming by to help, from noon at the latest. At 2 you called and said you were tied up with helping your mama. You've always been good to your mama, and I respect that. Find a man that treats his mama good, Auntie Chris always said to me. Bernice and Auntie Chris showed up. Poppy too, after he got water out of his own basement. His back was out when he came. He caught me texting you, said leave that boy be, we don't need no more hands. We can handle this. That TV you got me? Ruined. That ionizer fan? Ruined too. All your clothes you left over here, all my work scrubs and weekend dresses, soaked with that river stink water. I kept thinking about all the dead creatures. Those piranhas got loose, they said, down at the mall. I still couldn't find Big Kitty, and I didn't want to think on it. Auntie piled the clothes in hefty bags, said with a nice hot wash they'd be good as new, but I set them on the curb. Next door, Jimmy Franks, and over at Miss Pearl's and Tessie's, same thing. House upon house, same thing, just different stuff. Our whole block was houses turned inside out. You should have seen the piles. You should have seen Tessie just laughing and laughing, hauling out all those old R&B records. The yellow shirt folks got a kick out of her. I quit laughing and I'll start crying, she said. I sent you another text. Where are you? A little while later you wrote, still over at Mama's, be there soon. Me and Bernice and Auntie Chris and Poppy stood at the back door where the water had bust in, looking down the yard where the water come up from. It had swallowed up the kitchen floor before I could throw some stuff in a bag and go. I got out faster than some. Now all we could see was river mud dry in the bushes down there at the creek bank, 6 foot up, like a dirty tub ring on the leaves. The sun was powerful hot. Poppy had his hand on his back. I knew he was hurt. Then the yellow shirt folks showed up and said we had to rip up the carpet fast. They picked up the sofa, put it in the yard. Picked up the recliner, put it in the yard. They found your wallet behind the sofa, soggy like everything else. What you been doing without your wallet? You ain't missed it? I just don't get it. I just don't get you. I sent a text. You missing your wallet? But you ain't answered. This yellow shirt girl stood there with the wallet in her hands. That belongs to my fiance, I told him. He's coming around later. He's your fiance? He should be coming around now, the woman said. Shouldn't he? Well, I didn't know what to say to all that. Then they took axes to the walls and just started ripping them up. They tore the walls out of my living room and started in on the baby's room. They threw the chunks of wall on the lawn, more piles, wall crumblings everywhere. I know they was doing what had to be done, but it was hard to watch, you know. I went back in the bedroom with Auntie Chris and made myself busy emptying out drawers. They kept coming back there asking me, do I want to keep this and this and this, baby clothes and toys and such. I say no, let it go, because you just never know. You don't want to take that kind of chance. I didn't want our baby breathing that mold. The sun went down and Bernice had to go home to her kids, and Auntie Chris and Poppy was so tired. Go home, Poppy, I said. Drink a beer and take some aspirin. I sat on my back stoop, the one where the water come in, and called for Big Kitty. That cat ain't showed back up yet.
After the flood, I went to play golf. Never seen it quite so bad when I pulled off Riley and hurled the pickup down into the bottom below the freeway. I must have been in a foot of water before I even knew what was happening. She chugged on through it though. Damn engine stalled just on the other side of it, but I had plenty pull coming off the hill to carry me around that loop. Then I pushed the clutch quick to the floor and rolled up and out, and just as she was coming to a stop, fired it up again, and I'd already heard this story twice. Mr. Mike's tale of how he lost his voice several days back now. Mike was the prognosticator and the soothsayer among the hangers-on at the clubhouse. I'm quoting him at length here because, well, this might have been the tallest among his many tall boys. A story you would have been quick to disbelieve or take for a joke if it weren't for the positive fucking welt on the man's neck and the raspy voice with which he told the story. The course was closed on the day in question a week ago now, as were many businesses all through town. But, Mike says, he and Larry and several others among the area's cabin-fevered residents, after 2 solid days of pouring rain and plenty back strain, shop vacuuming and carrying upstairs water from deep basements, they collected on the closed golf course for gratis the truncated 13-hole round. You had to avoid holes 13 through 17 down in the low terrain by the freeway, as they were 3 feet underwater. But free golf we all probably deserved. The rest of the course, Mike said, well, it weren't the greatest day to walk 18 or 13, sloppy-ass wet as it were, but it was a damn long sigh of relief after 2 days of wondering whether you'd be washed away. Apologies, Bill. But he was out here too, one of the dedicated damn few. The thing is, though there weren't much of us, me and Larry, we come on 14 and cranked out 2 slice drives out to the right into the Haywoods cow pasture way down the big hill there, when we realized way too late, of course, that we'd hit right into a couple ladies playing ahead of us who were in the same damn predicament as us. I found my ball right quick, plugged in some mud next to a big saturated cow pie. And a few yards away from one of the cows, she was wiggling her hindquarters a little funny when she sidled away from me, and I couldn't help but notice a gleam of white when she switched her tail. And sure enough, there was a ball plug right there in the hole up under that tail, and I got a little closer and saw it was a Titleist, and Larry, he always plays that noodle ball, and so I turned to one of the women and I got a hold of the cow's tail and lifted it up. And I said, hey, I said, hey, does this look like yours? She turned and hit me in the throat with an iron.
After the flood, I stood under the hot shower until my sore muscles loosened. I'm not allowed to have pets in my apartment building, but I brought home a cage from work. There was no break for 2 days, and the rain fell heavy. Andrew was the new boss, so I had to explain things. I watched a lot of TV, and he didn't. I had called him at home in the middle of the night because the storm had turned into something else. I told him, turn on Channel 4. I broke it to Andrew, the zoo director and one of the highest paid municipal employees, that his zoo was on a floodplain. Andrew was an expert on Africa. He knew about the preferred tree canopy of the hyacinth macaw and the optimal gestational diet of the ringed desert tortoise. He knew where to buy ants wholesale for our aardvark, but he had no idea what to do in a flood. I'm coming out there, he said. You can't, I said, because of where he lived. Everyone within 100 miles wanted to live where he lived, but with the severe weather, it kept him apart from the zoo. The highway's closed, I said. You better stick tight. I got a hold of everyone on staff who could make it, and a handful of cops and firefighters were also sent over. And we went about securing the animals in 3-person teams. For the animals with permanent enclosures, it was just like feeding time. We checked the grazing areas, which were open and had high spots. Prairie Dog Town was the sad part, an enclosed mud puddle. I'd been up all night doing hard, wet labor, and when I walked back through the apartment into the kitchen in a towel, I almost forgot the Gelbus monkey. As I stood in front of the open refrigerator looking for something to eat, he watched me from inside the wire cage that rested on the counter.